Welcome to the official Scottish Rugby podcast, and this week we're delighted to be joined by Scotland Women's Interim Head Coach Bryan Easson. Now, Bernie and I used to play together, or play against each other a few occasions way back when, in the olden days. I've known him for a long time, and delighted that Bryan's able to join us just now and get his thoughts on the women's game in Scotland and amongst other things. But how are you, Bryan? Are you okay?
I'm good, mate, thanks. I'm good. You're just talking about us playing against each other's black and white TVs back then, Moss. It was a while back.
No, there were colour TVs, but they just hadn't reached the stage where you needed a remote control.
It was certainly black. It was black and white in Gala, though.
Now, the first time I ever played against somebody who had speech play was Bernie. You can probably tell that for the opening segment. I was maybe an 18-year-old standoff playing for Gala, and there was a wee guy opposite me, I think at Edinburgh at the time, just chirping away and mouth. I was like, who is this guy? And then when I eventually got eye contact, he had a wee smile on his face. I thought he was just having a laugh, so it made me feel a bit better.
It was just a bit of a giggle. 18-year-old boy at Gala Academy, so I thought I better just have a quick go at you. So, mind you, I'm not that much older than you anyway, Moss. I must have been only maybe 19 or so.
19 and a half, maybe, yeah. So you've got a big year ahead, haven't you, with the women? We'll dig into the fixtures and obviously the preparations. Rachel's here as well, part of the camp at the weekend. So I suppose I'll start there, Rachel. The camp at the weekend, for your point of view, was it 2 days? A lot of hard work. Really important to get some preparation in.
Yeah, it was brilliant, to be honest. We've obviously had a long spell not together. And it was really encouraging to see kind of everyone come together and be in real good shape. So everyone's done a lot of work away from the kind of team training. And we got through, as a result of that, a lot of work and had a really good camp. And I think it was brilliant just to get started. I think everyone's been chomping at the bit to get back and get into a bit of rugby. So yeah, that was a brilliant camp, and good to have Bryan obviously take over his first camp in charge, which was good fun. It was a good camp.
Did you see it as a start, Bryan, or was it more a continuation of kind of last season, or was it a clean start, new squad, obviously? Bearing in mind you've got games still to play from the Six Nations, 3 games still to play from the Six Nations. So was it a balance of continuing the good work that was set last year, or was it a fresh start? Here we go, we have to look ahead to a massive year.
It's a little bit of both, I think. I don't like looking at fresh starts for players at all, because you always talk about journeys in time. These players have been playing for a long, long time together, whether it's the national programme, whether it's been in clubs. So it's just a case of somebody getting off the bus and me getting back on the bus just to help that qualification process. So it's not me starting a new journey with them, it's them continuing, where they've left off. So on the other hand, it is a fresh start in terms of, because we have a clear goal. The fact that we're going from, we had a couple of Six Nations games, but the fact that we're going into World Cup qualifiers is probably, that's the big one. So it's a fresh start in terms of that's where we're going, that's where we're heading, and that's where our focus is clearly on. So a bit of both, really.
What about the group of players you're bringing together, Bryan, and that we are in the UK at different levels of restrictions? What about the players you're bringing as far as their journey, how fit they are, how much contact they've done, if any? Are they everybody at different levels, and therefore are you trying to then bring that back so you can get everybody at the same stage as you look ahead to these games?
I was expecting them to be at different levels, I'll be honest with you, because as you know, when we all went into lockdown, it was difficult. Some players had I suppose access to gyms within their garage. Some players were living in a flat, which was a little bit harder than others. But what was really positive was the group. I think you were having Zoom sessions per week. I think Jade Conkle was leading Zoom sessions where they were doing fitness work. Alan McDonald pre-lockdown and then post-lockdown was sending out really good programmes to everybody. So they're in a really good place. We had maybe 4 or 5 weeks prior to coming into Oriam last weekend where we were doing regional sessions. So there was regional sessions at Murrayfield, Scotstoun and Aberdeen Sports Village, as well as the work that the girls are putting in down south, whether it be at Loughborough where Rachel is, or Gloucester where Sarah Bonner is, etc. So it's testament to the work that they put in. It's you could say, Alan gave programmes or Jamie gave programmes. They've worked really, really hard. It's been great. It was really positive to see. So the weekend there was a little bit easier for me because you were able to do more than I was expecting.
Rach, does that, like, there's always the buzz when you come back into camp, and it's one thing you generally do miss when you're seeing it. I know the different groups have been together, but the first time collectively you're together, was that even bigger given the current circumstances? Was everybody, overwhelmed to be back in together?
It was, but it was also very strange because of the restrictions. So it's like when you come back in, you want to catch up and see what everyone's been up to and just have a bit of chat. But obviously we're socially distanced, we're wearing masks all the time, so it was, and you can't hug or anything. Like it was brilliant, but it was really strange. And I think Bryan will probably agree. The management had quite a time of just like, girls, stop talking, or like get back to your corner, whatever it was like. So yeah, it was brilliant to get back in. The buzz was brilliant, but quite strange all the same with the current restrictions and just trying to do everything we can to be as safe as possible.
And in terms of the sessions, how did that impact the sessions? Obviously, you were wearing masks at the actual training sessions as well, I believe.
Yeah, so the session content, I think, was brilliant in terms of we got through an awful lot and we managed to do a good amount of contacts and stuff like that. But as you say, just to minimise the risk, we had masks on the whole time. The management had a tough job of just kind of policing that as well, which was really difficult. But yeah, no, the girls were brilliant, and like all the other teams have been doing, like constant hand washing every time we finish a drill and stuff like that. So all the protocols were there to make it as safe as possible and allow us to get through as much as possible as well, which was brilliant.
That contact element's vital though, Bryan, isn't it? Because you said that your first game's France, isn't it? A kind of rearranged Six Nations fixture. Yeah. But the French women, they've been playing already. They've played competitive league games over the last 2 weeks or something. Yeah,
they have, and the French league's been up and running. Also, the national squad are based at Marcoussis in Paris as well. So they've all been doing an awful lot. So you all know yourselves, you can do as much fitness as you like, but until you start doing contact and hitting feeling the bumps and the bruises and the down and ups, getting back off the floor, getting back into it again. So we've got to try. We've built it up. We've had to gradually build it up. James Robson has been excellent in terms of just advising us of what we can and can't do. The medical group and the management team at the weekend, as Rachel was saying, is like they've probably done more work than they've ever done, cleaning things down and making sure the masks are up and all these kind of things. But if we don't get contact in, and if we don't get the intensity right for that, it would be difficult to go into playing France, because the last game that anybody played was the 10th of February against England. So that was the last time we played, and then to go in against a team that's top 3 in the world with no contacts, we really have to build it up. We've got another camp in 2 weeks' time, another one after that, where we'll get some referees in and we'll look at doing some game progress as well. So yeah, we'll get there. It's just going to be a hard work because it's going to be sore in the bodies as well.
So what date's that French game? Is that the weekend of the 24th?
24th, 25th, yeah, it's the Sunday the 25th. So we've got 2 camps prior to that, and then obviously a test week. So again, we've got I think 10 sessions between now and France to try and get everything in. So when you put it like that, there's a lot of work to be done.
And you play France, Wales, and then Italy, which are all Six Nations games. But the Italian game's also a qualification fixture for Rugby World Cup. So in many ways, due to that kind of lack of proper game preparation, do you maybe use the French game and the Welsh game as more game prep for that really important game against Italy?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'd all be saying that really what's the ultimate goal this season is the ultimate goal is to qualify for the World Cup. So it comes down to those 3 games in December. So to be honest, to have these rearranged games for the Six Nations will probably come at the perfect time for us, because we can train and we can use those games as preparation. And clearly, any time you pull on the blue jersey and you've got the thistle on and you want to win games, that's there's no doubt in that. But we can use those games as good prep. We can look at different groupings, different personnel in those games as well to get us into position for that Italian game. And the Italian game over there is, that's the one we'll be really building up for.
Interesting. It's not dissimilar to what we've been talking about with the Guinness PRO14. Edinburgh in particular having to use what were competitive games against Glasgow to then build up to a semi-final, to talk about test matches as potential preparation. But to your point, Burnley, the intensity will be massively right up there. These are not pre-season games; they're test matches. But test matches, you need to, as well as competing and doing the best to win, get an enormous amount of to move yourself further forward on the journey to World Cup qualification. It's an interesting year to take over as head coach. I just wanted to dig into Burnley a wee bit about you as a coach, and like the girls know you well. You're massively experienced from coaching the women's team, but also age group teams as well. But taking over from Philip Doyle, will there be? What's your style? What will you bring to that? What do you want to see when the girls are representing Scotland?
I think my style is, I'll be honest, my kind of philosophy on playing is that everybody 1 to 15 enjoys exactly what they're doing. They've got to be happy in the environment. And I've kind of set out a not stall with the management team, but looking at the group last year, the last couple of years, is if we have the girls feeling, as they get on the bus an hour before they go to the game, if they're feeling fresh, if they're clear and they're confident and they're calm, we'll get the best performances from these girls. I've seen situations when we played in Spain last year when they were confident in everything they did. They were calm before going on the pitch. For me, that's how you get the best out of this group. So my philosophy on playing will be, let's enjoy and be together as a group, but it's also to make sure that there's a real understanding in their heads of what we're trying to do. So there'll be a different style from myself to Philip, different people. My experiences in the coaching game are probably a little bit different as well. So it'll be tough. I'll be relentless on the hard work, on the detail, and basically how they work on the field. But there'll be other areas where I'll probably be less relentless. But the small details for me is vitally important. That
almost sounds quite inspiring for the women, Rachel, isn't it? Like, there is an element that it is fun, it should be fun, you should enjoy it, that sometimes gets overlooked in rugby. But I think it's needed, and I think if it brings the best out in players, it's a really kind of quite a refreshing view. Is that what you share as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Bryan will probably agree with me here. Like, the girls, when we come into camp, we always have a brilliant time, and I think other teams definitely perceive that about us as well. Speaking to some of the girls down here, they always say, when you're in camp, you all look like you're having the best time ever. And although we're always working hard and putting a shift in, there's always those little elements of, competition, even if it's just like in a handling drill or a bit of competition at the end of the session, that's bringing out the best in players and really pushing them to be better. And I think that's really important. And I think, something that Bryan and I already have is a really open and honest relationship. And I find it really easy as a coach to go to, not as a coach, as a player, to go to Bryan as my coach and have a conversation about whether it's, the content of the session or what we're going to do tomorrow or whatever it is. And I think that's really important as well, especially when, we've got, like Bryan says, not many sessions before we play in what could be a very physical first test match.
I think it's important, as Rachel was saying there, I think it's a big one for me, is that I think that there is an open door policy for everybody. I think if we get to a situation where players can be open with each other, they can talk about performance, they can help each other's performance as well. But I think I like player led. I like as much player led sessions as possible. I like people to understand that, obviously as coach, my job is to give a framework. Mm-hmm. And the framework is, that's how we'll play. But within the framework, it's up to the players, because I'm not on the field. I'm not making decisions on the pitch. And I suppose my philosophy is a little bit that if you can justify your actions on the field, I'm happy with that. If you can justify why you're doing stuff on the field, I'm happy with that. Because as long as we're sticking to the I suppose it's not a strict framework, but the framework we believe that will get the best out of us. If within that framework that you feel as if you can do something, if you see a space, you see something else that's on, have a go, because it's your game. It's how you want to play it, and as I say, if you can justify it, carry on.
Is that born from the way you played the game?
No, I wasn't quick enough or smart enough to be able to do that. I just stick to a framework. I just passed the ball and kicked it. So absolutely not. I would love to have played the game like that. I'd love to have been able to just to be quick enough. I was as slow as a week in the jail, unfortunately, and so I just had to get other people playing off me, but no, that's the way I wanted to play. I think I learned a lot from certain coaches as well. Some coaches that I really enjoyed playing with. Some coaches I didn't enjoy playing for. Some coaches I've enjoyed working with, as in coaching, and some coaches I didn't enjoy. And I think I've taken the good and the bad from everybody. And I'm not saying I've got the perfect formula, but it's, as a player, it's how I would have liked to have been coached. And I think it's important to treat. For me, it's person first, player second. And if you get the person right, I think that helps the playing philosophy outside that.
You've built your team as well. You've got everybody in place. So you want to have in place. I assume in the guys, you've got a good mix of experience. Guys like Tyrone Holmes, and now that philosophy will go and be pushed through them as well. Yeah,
100%. And then it's like challenging them as well. It's not. Again, it's not. It's challenging them to be the best they can be. It's challenging them to be, and I suppose in terms of personality as well, there's different personalities. Tyrone's a completely different personality than I am. Ross is a different personality again as well, which I think is important, but it's also putting your own stamp on how you coach. I've got a framework. Coach, this is the framework I want to be in, but you've got license to coach in there. So 3 really good guys. Tyrone is the most passionate guy I've ever. You're laughing away there, Al. Tyrone is really, really passionate, and he loves it. He gets so. He just wants the best for everybody, and it's just. And again, my job is to help him deal with that and how he can coach through that. So, great guy. You've been with him.
I mean, as you say, I played with him, and I know what he brings. He absolutely, as you say, the passion, the ball energy, the fact he was relentless, regardless of, and we were both in the same situation at times, but regardless of whether he was given the starting number 7 jersey or his job was different that week and he potentially wasn't even involved, it was the same Tyrone that you got.
If he wasn't playing, I can imagine.
Leading from the front and getting under people's skin as much as he could as well. But terrific. I can imagine all the passion and skills he had as a player transferring brilliantly into coaching.
Does he lead in defence? Sorry.
He is leading defence, and he's.
I see Rachel nodding. Yeah.
Listen, he's brilliant, and it's great to have that passion. And I think, Al, you're right. If he wasn't playing, he'd be the most detailed water carrier ever. He'd be he'd get that right. He'd make sure he was 100% bang on. And working with him has been, it's been really good for me because. Somebody who's just come out of playing, he's recently retired, understanding the detail that he needed as a player, is to then transfer that across as becoming a coach. So it's real positive to see players coming out of the pro game into coaching at this level, and it's great to see the Scottish Rugby. There is a pathway for coaches, and I think that's really positive.
Rachel, are you inspired by that? Because he is full on, he's massively aggressive, he's, as you say, boisterous, he's physical, and most defence coaches are like that with the detail as well. But does it rub off on you girls? Is it infectious?
It does, because one thing about Tyrone is he can't hide his emotions, so you know pretty quickly if you've messed up, and his face is just heartbreaking. When you do something wrong and you turn around and he's like, no. So all of us say it, we're just like literally doing everything we can to make him proud.
That's a great analogy, because he some coaches will tell you, and when you mess up, it's on you. You genuinely feel with somebody like Tyrone, you were letting him down.
It's breaking his heart.
Gary Mercer used to be like that, going back a long time at Glasgow. That he probably didn't. No disrespect to Gary, he coached in a different way. It was more passion. It was probably not as much detail as Tyrone goes into every detail, but you felt as if you made a mistake, and it let him down. It was I'm not angry, I'm disappointed face, and like, oh.
But it's brilliant to have him there. Ross Miller coming in as well. Ross has got some good experience. He was head coach for Scotland under-18s last year. He's worked with the women under-20s as well, so he's had experience of working in the women's game. So just having a balance of I suppose of mannerisms, of personality within in the management team is brilliant. We've got Alan McDonald as S&C, we've got Jamie Coffey. Alan McDonald's been involved in Olympic sport. Jamie Coffey's been involved in the pro game. Gemma's been involved in international football. So, we've got Ellen Dixon, the manager. She's played rugby for Scotland. And, we've got such a good management team that, everybody gets on with each other as well. So off the field, you could go and sit and have a coffee with them easy. But the work and the real work, hard work that goes on behind the scenes is probably unseen at times, but it's a real honour to work with these guys. So, but Tyrone certainly will keep me on my toes. Yeah,
I think as well. Like obviously, we've only just seen Ross for the first time this weekend, but he brings a bit of that balance. Like he's different in terms of his coaching delivery. He's quite calm, and we went through our lineouts for the first time with him, and it was very calm, but we got through stuff, and so I think he balances out Tyrone for sure from like a forwards point of view. Tyrone's like the cheerleader, and then we've got the detail with Ross.
You need that in a coaching group and a management group, because all the same personality can take its toll on another experience. But
the personalities will change as well, though. I'd imagine there probably will be times, especially when you've got so many games this year and quite a condensed period that are vitally important. There might be, some sessions or some games where Tyrone's a quiet guy and Brian's ripping.
No, that's not going to happen mostly.
Or Ross might get kind of overly enthusiastic or loud, and that's where I think that's good as well. I think if you're able to show your emotions and be part of it, so the kind of basic emotion or what they stand for as individuals, but when pressure comes on or success or celebration, I think you'll see a mix across them.
I think so, and I think using the word celebration and the word using success, we talked about that last week as well. As as a group, we want to celebrate success, whether it's on and off the field. We've got to, go back to the first point Al talked about. What's my kind of thinking of the game? It should be enjoyable, and I think sometimes we forget that. The squad of 30 there, we're talking a group of full-time professional women in here as well who have got their jobs away from the rugby, so they're working, a long hours through the week. We're asking them to then do detail. So if we're asking them to work through the week, do all the detail that that we want to have, and then we come in and we just hammer them without having fun and celebrating success and enjoying what we do on and off the field. It's going to be extremely difficult to get the best out of them. So we have to celebrate. We've got to be successful and try. There will be pressure. It's a year where you qualify for a World Cup, and there are going to be bumps in the road. It's not going to be smooth. There's going to be a bump in terms, whether it's an injury, somebody will get injured, or we'll lose somebody through whatever. But it's about in front of the show curtain, keeping the smile on, behind the show curtain, just Jesus is tough going, but it's making sure that we're all enjoying it.
It's such a brilliant philosophy that I think that, from my own playing experience, and when you see teams succeed, they've got that. You've got to have the foundations, you've got to have the hard work, and you've already talked about that. Like you're going to push each other incredibly hard, but if you can, finish the tough sessions or even lose a game, reflect, and then still be able to move on with some positives, that's how in the long term you're going to get the success that you deserve. I think that the challenges in the world at the moment, as you rightly point out, Bernie, not just with the girls playing and coming into camp, but everything else that's going on with COVID and the restrictions, means that an opportunity to come together and play a sport you love is a rare one. So it's got to be done with a smile on the face and the right attitude.
It does, and you can work really hard, but still enjoy it.
Yeah.
You can still put in the hard work, and you can still, you're not going to qualify for a World Cup without putting in the hard yards. There's going to be pain. There's going to be, there will be tears. There'll be a lot of sweat. There'll be a lot of hard work, but you need a balance. And my job with management and the players is to get that balance, get the hard work, get the hard yards in, but also make it, a time where, and it's great to hear, Rachel talking that, that other countries or other players perceive us as enjoying themselves, and that, what, we've got to continue that.
One game that I'd like to go back to in terms of that, which jumps out to me, was when you played Japan at Scotland last year. Rachel, did you play in that one?
Yeah.
I remember watching that and thinking it was one of the best games I've seen our women play in terms of intensity, the skill level. I thought it was brilliant, although it came out on the wrong side of it. But that was one for me where I think you're maybe kind of hinting at there was so much good in that, but the result wasn't right, that you can work on the good things, get that result right the next time. Because I actually thought that was one of your best performances as a team. The intensity, the speed, the skill level, I thought was excellent. And that for me would be how I would hope you would play going forward. Can you remember playing in that game? Because it was quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the first 20 minutes, everyone was like, I think that was a really important game in terms of like almost maturing as a team, because that first 20 minutes they played so fast compared to kind of what we were used to. Even at international level, they played just a very different style of rugby, and they had even like the kind of way they attacked was quite different to other teams. And
it was like the men's national Japan national team, wasn't it? It was a blueprint. Yeah. For those who didn't see it, that's how they played. Yeah,
like how we described it after the game was that they just seemed to have dummy runners from every single angle coming off every single play. And I think, it took us maybe 20 minutes to get up to speed and work out how to defend against that. But yeah, I think, as a team, like some of the stuff that we did in that game was absolutely brilliant. And the energy we had from literally minute 1 to 80 was really good. And I think, it was disappointing just to finish the game the way we did. And again, that was a massive learning point for us, was probably how to play when you're up with 10 minutes to go. Was one thing that we took from that, because we were still trying to go 1,000 miles an hour and probably played to their advantage. So yeah, it was a brilliant game. And I think, like the energy off the back of that and what we've talked about in camp is that, playing with tempo and playing fast, exciting rugby is exactly what we want to play like. So hopefully that is how we come back in October.
I think that Japan game I was there as well, I'm saying the one thing that stood out for me, and it's a fine line, but somewhere along the journey there's a switch to we're going out to win this game. Now we might not win it, but we're going to chuck absolutely everything at it, whether it's tempo, energy, skill level, everything. We're going out to win it. At no stage are we going out just trying not to lose that. Yeah. And you see that in other teams as well. People at test level and at pro level, and at all levels of rugby, teams go out onto the park with the intention of trying not to lose the game. Well, it doesn't work, especially with the skill set that you've got in the national women's team. It's about going out and throwing kitchen sink at a team. And trying to, over the journey, reduce the number of errors down so that you then push through and get those wins. But I agree with Mossy. I thought it was an outstanding game of rugby.
I think that kind of it was a good game in terms of the spectacle itself. It was a great advert for.
It's a nightmare to be part of as a coach.
Oh, tell you what! I mean, but again, that's part of the journey, though, isn't it? That's just part of these things you do. Right? Yes, we're up there and we're down there and we're up there, and it's the bumps in the road. But in terms of the spectacle, it was outstanding. It really was. But and that was why we kind of came out with used the word there, Al, about just being relentless. The Japanese were relentless, but the speed and I know Rachel, you played in the front row. You played at hooker that day, didn't you? And just to be able to go into scrums and then get up in the speed of the ball going back and forward. But we stuck with it and we kept going. And the first 20 minutes, I think everybody thought, wow, this is going to be a tough, long afternoon. But then we probably played as good a rugby that we've ever played, and then we just dropped off at the end. But again, it's learning, it's taking that on board, it's moving forward and using those lessons. But I think the spectacle for me, it's brilliant. People want to watch it now. People see a lot in women's rugby, and it's testament to the work again the girls are putting in. But we work really hard on our core skills, and we don't go further away from our core skills, because if you don't get your hand catch, your pass, your evasion skills, your tackle skills, you're not going to compete. So it's not about throwing in all these plays that you watch on the TV. It's nothing like that at all. It's just about developing the core skills and then just increasing the intensity as you move along.
Well, you mentioned it there about people want to watch it. That's very true. You can see the crowds growing and growing. But you've also got an incredible group of role models, and we won't embarrass Rachel for asking her to comment on this. But like, as far as not just women's sport, but sport in general, a fantastic group of players that everything that they're doing that's public facing and the work they're doing in behind will inspire the next generation. How big an important part is that for you in the journey of the team as well?
I think the fact that they understand that the role models is a huge step forward. I think my youngest was she was the mascot at one of the games last year, and she just talks about Tom all the time, Lisa Thompson, and Carlin, my partner, she loves the game, she loves watching, she's watched rugby, we've watched rugby together since we were kids, and then the women's game, she just really enjoys it. And I think it's because of the girls. It's not because of the spectacle's getting there, but these girls are role models. They are, they're inspiring youngsters to play. And I really don't think the girls understand how important they are to the younger generation. Their feet are firmly on the ground, which is great. You've got to keep Emma Wassels on the ground a little bit more than everybody else, but Wass and Bonds, that's different gravy, that pair. But I think it's so important. It's so important that people want to come and watch. It's so important that they see, that they look up to Rachel and Wass and Bonds, and it's great. It really is. It really is inspiring for us as a management group to see what they're doing off the field, but also once they start putting the performances on the field that we know they can do, we'll get even more people in.
Barney, you mentioned the growing and fantastic support, as well as the fact that the girls are a great role model. There's one thing that Scottish Rugby have gone out with this week is a new ticketing membership, and in essence that's a way of getting behind the team. We're not looking like we're going to be able to fill BT Murrayfield or Scotland for any of the test matches, which is a real shame, but a chance for people to show their support with those memberships and back your team on the way to hopefully a World Cup, as well as concluding the Six Nations. Yeah,
I think it's a great initiative, in the fact that everybody wants to be supporting their team. Everybody wants to be filling Murrayfield in Scotland, and that's the one thing we can say, is that the support we get at Scotland is, so appreciated. I mean, the girls straight after games go and sign, and the support is excellent, and at Murrayfield's unbelievable. But any support that we can get from away from the stadia is, it really does push us on. We believe we're in the right position to qualify, but anything we can get through this, the supporters, whether it's in social media or whether it's online, and just showing us the support that you're behind us, would be really appreciated by us all here with the national women's squad.
I'm sure you'll get a lot of that support as well, Bryan, as you progress through the season and the year ahead, with so many internationals and so many crucial internationals. But we'll let you get on with your planning for your next session, your next 2-day camp.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks. But really appreciate your time this morning, and thanks for being part of the official Scottish Rugby podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Good to see you.
Well, great to get Barney on, and you guys know him very well, Rach, obviously from coaching you, but Mossy, you mentioned you've known him for many years, played against him, I suppose, come up through similar paths as far as coaching as well as your playing journey. Yeah.
I've known Bryan for a long time. As I say, probably mid-90s, played against each other. It's a good few years older than me, I'll put that in.
He was claiming to be the same age, wasn't he?
Many do, aye. And then he was involved a lot of time as a coach when I was a professional player with Edinburgh. He was involved with skill coaching, academy coaching. He was head coach at Melrose. So he's done a lot of coaching. He's from a good kind of coaching family and background, and he studies the game the whole time. He's one of the guys who's not played professional rugby. Well, actually, I think he was part of the 4 districts, the Caledonia Reds, way back when in the mid-90s. So he's had a taste of what kind of professional rugby was, but not really what it is now. But he's so up to date and on it, and understands the game and the feeling for the game for somebody who's recently not played at that level. He's right on it, and he watches every minute, every game of rugby, probably more than I do.
I was going to say, surely not more than you do. What were from the Fosrock Academy point of view, from the skills coach point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Age grade teams, skills teams, and we share quite similar philosophies in the sense that, and he mentioned it there, that like your building blocks, your skills are what determine how successful you're going to be. For we've said for many years about the All Blacks, they just do the simple things well. Their catch pass skills are excellent, which allows them to stand half a metre or not even that further apart. So therefore, if you're defending them, you have to spread out. Now, if you're spread out in defence and there's more space between you and the defender next to you, it's harder to get a dominant tackle. It's harder to make a tackle. So just something as simple as that, where the catch pass is excellent, and then your footwork and your evasion work's excellent. You stand a little bit wider, you've got more space to exploit the defender with your excellent footwork. So that's kind of how he thinks in terms of skill development. It's very interesting to see if Rachel agrees with that, because that's what I see, and I think it's great for no matter what type of rugby you play, what strategy, what structure, what shape you have, what moves or plays you have, those bits underline if your plays are going to be successful or not.
In terms of like the content of our camp since Bryan came in a couple of seasons ago, I'd say like the number of passes that we get in a camp has probably increased by hundreds over a 2-day camp, and I think that's allowed us to develop the way that we play and attack and have everyone in a position where they can feel that they can make a play or be an option. So yeah, I'd say for sure like his big philosophy was when he came in that he was going to improve us as in terms of our core skills, and then gradually that's allowed us to develop the way we play and the way we attack, which is really exciting. And
to be honest, that'll be something he measures, the number of passes. Yeah. It won't just be the collective number of passes in the session. He'll be identifying players who maybe, and this may sound ridiculous, but it'll be true in any squad, there'll be some players who go to a coaching session, a training session, and never pass. They don't pass once, but it'll be trying to make those players pass 20, 30 times each, and other players pass more. So there'll be a detailed look across it. But I just think that's whatever the level, wherever you play, and it kind of relates to how I feel I was coached, especially as a schoolboy, was you actually do your skills. You'd catch, your pass, your tackle, your kick. And then as professional rugby's evolved and you kind of grew up the ladder, there was more strategy, understandably. There's more time to analyse, but you still rely on your basic skills to execute a strategy.
Certainly matches the philosophy of the national men's team's coach as well, and Gregor Townsend. And Gregor, if you can have a ball in your hand when you're doing something, he wants the ball in your hand so that you, exactly to the point you made there about Burnley, about the amount of passes you can get in a session, and then if you add that up over a year, you add that up over 2-3 years, then the skill development has to come off the back of it. I mean,
it's under pressure as well. It's under pressure as well, though, Al, because sometimes you fall into the trap of just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff. So you might pass 100 passes, but not one of them's under pressure. Not one of them has a decision element to it. Not one of them has somebody hunting on your inside or coming blitzing from the outside. So it's that skill, but under pressure as well, which will be included. So it's more than just the skill, I think.
Just summing up Burnley's philosophy, Rach, and I'm sure he shared an awful lot with you over the weekend, but it's skill development, as we've touched on there. He talked about hard work. Nobody's going to be successful in any team unless there's hard work. And then underpinning it all was enjoyment factor, which seems to sit very well with your own philosophy of the game and what you guys have built over the last few years in the women's team.
I think we're really lucky as a team that we do get on and we are all friends, and it does make that little bit easier, but we do very much have a brilliant ethos in terms of how much work people put in. As a captain, I've had very few conversations with people around, things like attitude or work rate. And it's brilliant because it means you can focus on the important things like your skill development, your shape, your core skills. And yeah, definitely. I think it's clear with everything we do in camp around keeping everyone happy, and Bryan's a big believer in that, both on and off the pitch, keeping his players happy, and I think it's really starting to show.
All right. As we touched on there, a big year ahead, a big 6 months ahead for you and the rest of the guys, so I'm sure it's going to be full of enjoyment and hard work and hopefully success at the end of it. On a different subject, it was a big weekend of rugby in Europe and Edinburgh. Unfortunately not quite doing enough over in Bordeaux. Rach, you were in camp. Did you get the opportunity to see that game at all?
We did have the game on at one of our lunch times, but due to socially distanced viewing, the players were a dot on the screen for me, so I didn't get a good idea of the game, but I saw clips of it, yeah.
And Moshi, I mean, I don't know how many games of rugby there were over the weekend, but I assume you watched probably 90 to 95% of them. Yeah,
so most of the games at the weekend, as usual, Al. I do have other things in my life, but I do like to catch up and keep an eye on what's going on. But I was really disappointed with the Edinburgh result, to be honest. Bordeaux are a good side, they're a quality side. We said that last week. They're well coached. They would probably have won the top 14 or been the favourite for the top 14 if the season had continued from last season, if that makes sense. So they are a quality outfit. Edinburgh didn't start well at all. Mistakes, a couple of bad errors, 14-0 down, away from home, up against it, in the heat. But then actually they got back into the game really well, and that's the frustrating thing, that if they'd gone on to being beaten, not heavily, but kind of quite easily, they'd maybe have been easier to take in some ways, if that makes sense. But they actually got themselves in a winning position, and 2 or 3 times made errors and just didn't take the opportunities they created. So they were good enough to get in there. They were good enough to win it, and they didn't quite take it. But frustrating as they go on to the break in their season before next week when it all starts up again with the Pro 14.
I didn't see the Edinburgh game, but I read an awful lot about what is, as you rightly point out, the end of the season, and everybody looking to sum up Edinburgh's season is talking about the fact that once again they've got to 2 knockout games, but once again they've not been able to win either of them. And I can't help feel it's slightly negative towards Edinburgh. For me, and it sounds strange to say, but we'll judge the success of this season by what they do next year, because they're not going to go straight into knockout games and start winning these games and winning Guinness Pro14s and European Cups. There has to be a staged process to it. And Mossy, interesting to get your thoughts on it. Ultimately we're in a results-based business, but that result generally comes over a longer period than just one season. There has to be somebody stepping back and saying, no, Edinburgh are continuing to move forward here.
Yeah, I think so. I think we should be careful of kind of falling into trends that everybody just falls into, in the sense that you have to lose games before you win them. That is probably true, but there are examples of, like, Connacht won the Pro 14 without failing at a semi-final or failing at a final beforehand. So it does happen, and I think sometimes we have to be careful not just to assume that you have to. I know it is really quite important to learn from mistakes. Of course it is, but teams can win without failing.
How many teams win without failing and then stay at the top of the game?
Well, I know, exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying, and I'm backing you, but I'm just saying as a caveat, it can happen, and I think it can happen if you have a kind of moment where everything comes together, like it did for Connacht that year. I mean, it was, and quite rightly, they've, as you say, they've not backed it up and had much success in that, in terms of tangible success since. So, but I do think it can still happen. So for this season, looking ahead more than last season looking back, don't feel that you can only win if you've failed at the final hurdle before. There has to be the goal and the desire to win always, and you have to believe you can do it. But I do think Edinburgh will be more frustrated with the Ulster fixture than the Bordeaux fixture. And I think Richard Cockle pointed that, because that they were more comfortable in that tournament, and they'll be so frustrated and being in that winning position and falling on the wrong side of the momentum and the wrong side of the game. So it'd be quite hard, I think, in the season coming to relate it or to compare it to the season's gone, because there are going to be so many breaks. Who knows what the restrictions are going to allow in terms of player representation. We see the game, one of the European quarterfinals, called off at the weekend because there was cases just before the game. So it'll be a disrupted season going ahead. So you don't really know. There'll be more internationals in a shorter period of time, so that's going to take more of the international players obviously away from Edinburgh and Glasgow. So it'll be hard to get a real critical analysis from previous seasons to this. But are they good enough to win every game they play? I think Edinburgh and Glasgow are. Of course they are. The real consistency comes if you back it up every single week. Glasgow have done that over the last few years. Edinburgh have done that certainly over the last 2 years. They topped the conference this year, so it's that knockout thing they have to get better at. I don't know what the answer is, how you get better at knockout rugby. It's still just a game, and I know we continue to have this disagreement, but it's still just a game. You go out and you do your bit and you win it. It shouldn't change. The context shouldn't change being a semi-final or a final or a quarter-final. And I know we kind of disagree a wee bit on that, but actually just get your head on what you need to do and execute it. And there'll be emotional highs and lows depending on the game, but just focus on the task and do it as well as you can, and you should get what you deserve.
No, I did right. I mean, I suppose I'm looking at it and saying let's measure them on progress over a 5-year period as opposed
to undoubtedly a lot of success. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and it frustrates me when you hear like a lot of criticism for losing a semi-final or losing a final. I used to think, well, at least I'm in the semi-final or the final to lose. Do you know what I mean? What would you rather? We didn't make it. You know, so that's the other side of the coin. You get criticised for failing at the final hurdle, but I know it sounds a wee bit pathetic to some people, but at least you made the final hurdle.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I don't, Rach, I'm thinking, criticise the game, criticise not being able to close it out, but actually somewhere along there, draw a line that says, right, well, look, that didn't go the way it should have gone, but let's step back and reflect on where the overall piece is, and maybe that'll come. But it was obviously very raw, and everything that was being talked about was critical. Now, we might see in the build-up to the Guinness PRO14, which starts again, as you say, very quickly, there'll be more of a reflective piece that says, well, look, Edinburgh will be a far better team this season than they were last year, or should be a far better team than they were last year.
Yeah, I think perspective's everything with sport, especially as a player. Like, you're going to go through ups and downs, and I think it's how you learn from them, and I think they can take a huge amount of confidence for how far they have come this season and what they have achieved. And it is disappointing to not have done as well at this kind of business end, but I guess with the preparation they had and stuff like that, it's all a bit different at the moment as well. So I think they can go into next season, which, as you say, is right around the corner, with a huge amount of confidence, and probably learn a huge amount more than they would have done had they made the final. Because a lot of the time when you win games or you win finals, you kind of forget to reflect to the same extent as you do when you've had a tough loss and a lot of emotion with that. So hopefully they'll come back, bigger and better next year.
Well, Mossy, as we look ahead to the Guinness PRO14, which is starting again very quickly, the fixtures have just been announced. Also announced as the Kings have sadly gone into voluntary liquidation, and due to the ongoing restrictions, South African teams and Cheetahs won't be able to travel either. So it'll be a slightly different look, Guinness PRO14, but two tough fixtures opening up for Glasgow and Edinburgh. Yeah,
Glasgow start, as I have done quite a few times actually, away in Galway. They play Connacht in the opening weekend, a week on Saturday, and then Edinburgh start at home against Ospreys. So it's every fixture's tough, isn't it? Away from home's tough, but I think Glasgow will go into that having won their last game, which was that second 1872 Cup game, or the second game against Edinburgh. And I think they'll be in reasonably good shape. They would have got a lot out of those two fixtures, although it wasn't really representative of last season, if you know what I mean. And they've looked at them more for the start of this season. And Edinburgh have been playing right up until last week, top level European rugby until last week. So they'll rest this week. And I say there's more continuity, I think, than the Ospreys will have. And they're playing at home back at BT Murrayfield. And I think, I do expect a strong start from both teams. There'll be some games on Monday night as well, as they try and kind of juggle all the fixtures that have to be played. I think in October, I think, as well. So that's something new. And there'll be internationals during that period as well. So there'll be players will be jumping back and forward, I assume, from international stuff and club stuff within the same week potentially. So there will be disruptions, but let's hope they both get off to a good start next Saturday.
No, absolutely. You mentioned internationals will be running alongside the pro games. For me, the best thing about that, the most exciting thing about that, is some of the young players you see coming through, the opportunity they get to play not just one-off games, but a prolonged stint of games over what will be 8 or 9 weeks. It will be a challenge for some of the players who are sitting in between pro level and international level to jump up and down. And we've talked about that challenge on a podcast before, even simple things like getting your head around ways of playing, of codes, of all these different elements. But certainly a huge amount of rugby to come, exciting amount of rugby to come. One other thing that was launched this week on Monday and went on sale on Wednesday was the ticket memberships that the Scottish Rugby have launched. And I suppose at the moment when we can't guarantee any crowds into either BT Murrayfield or Scotstoun, it's a way of, I suppose, asking for support. It's looking at everything that's gone on in the past and saying, in this difficult time, can support the team, support the players, as well as the ability to be entered into a ballot for any tickets that do become available. But Mossy, it's hugely important that support's there, and hugely important that people back this membership.
Yeah, I think you hear so often that when things are hard, when times are tough, that a community spirit and a level of support and people pulling together really helps. And I think that's what, Scotland are looking for that support in any way, shape or form. Scottish Rugby are looking for that support for those who can support. And I think it does pull everybody together. It does keep everybody together. We don't know if there's going to be, as you say, fans allowed in, but even if there isn't, giving people the opportunity to feel part of the team as one, I think is important, and hopefully be valued. It certainly be valued in Scottish Rugby's side, and hopefully the public as well maybe value that link that we're trying to create, that during what is a pretty miserable time and a tough time for everybody, you still represent each other. The players and the team represent the fans, and the fans represent the players and the team.
I think that it's undoubtedly an ask. There are, rights and benefits attached to the membership, but it is an ask. It's an ask to support Scottish Rugby. It's an ask to support all of the teams, all of the players, to try and make sure that we come out of this in as good a shape as we went into. Well, once again, thank you very much for listening to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. We covered a huge amount of varying subjects there. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week.